working on Project 99 right now. Try and get everybody to level 99 in the Evil Forest. It's gonna take forever. Probably won't actually finish it.
Final Fantasy IX was released in Japan on July 7th, 2000. It arrived in America in mid-November. In addition to his production role, Hironobu Sakaguchi returned to the creative staff to help solidify early concepts. He was aided by game producer Shinji Hashimoto. Yoshitaka Amano also returned to the forefront of the team. Nobuo Uematsu composed his 9th continuous score, and in the director's chair was Hiroyuki Ito, responsible for such Final Fantasy pillars as the Job and Active Time Battle Systems and Espers. Almost every aspect of the design in 9 returned to the roots of the series. The plot appeared to follow many common cliches, but it was intended to. The adventure began when our hero, Zidane, a member of a rogue theater group, took part in an elaborate attempt to kidnap the Princess Garnet. As they bumbled their way through the mission, they were accidentally joined by Garnet's stalwart protector, Steiner, and the befuddled black mage, Vivi. Through the trials that followed, they enlisted the talents of the stoic dragoon Freya, the effervescent summoner Aiko, the enigmatic gourmand Quina, and the brooding bounty hunter Amarant. They also got occasional assistance from Beatrix, a general to the army of Alexandria, and various members of Tantalus, Zidane's performing pals. Cid got promoted to a royal position in 9 as the regent and ruler of Lindblum. He appeared to the party in Oglop form after being cursed by his wife Hilda. Cid revealed he was the one who ordered Tantalus to kidnap the princess to protect her from the unexplained actions of her mother, Queen Braun. The squad engineer helped the party board the Blue Narcissus when both of their airships barely made it back to the ground in one piece. The team took back the skies on Cid's latest invention, the Hildegard III, and even stole the enemy's craft, the Invincible. They also traveled by air trolley and even underground spider in 2 ancient transit systems called the Gargan and Fossil Rue.
I think that this game has the most methods of travel in any Final Fantasy game, still, to this day. I mean, think about it. Final Fantasy 1, you got a boat and an airship. That was pretty much the way it went up until 4. 4, you had the... I don't know if you had a boat, but you had like some kind of hovercraft, an airship, and the lunar whale. 5, you had a boat, airship, and a submarine. 6, you just had an airship. 2 different airships, actually. I don't even think you got a ship, like a boat. 7, you had the tiny Bronco, a chocobo, the dune buggy, and the high wind. So that's 4. And 8, what did you have in 8? You had the truck, I guess there was a train, chocobos, the garden, the Ragnarok, and I think even an airship for a bit, so that's 6. 9, let's see, 9. So 9, you get 2 airships, you get the Blue Narcissus, chocobo. Actually, that might be it. No, never mind. I guess 8 probably is the most.
The plot in 9 was not only filled with numerous references to the 2 sprite generations, it almost felt like a direct sequel to the original NES adventure. It was revealed the story's fatalistic villain, Kuja, came from another world called Terra. To reach this dimension and discover its secrets, you had to travel to 4 elemental shrines. Their protectors, Malorus, Tiamat, Kraken, and Lich, are unmistakable allusions to the fiends from Final Fantasy I.
So I wonder if maybe then they changed Kari or Kari from Final Fantasy I to Marilith was so that people could have something to relate it to from Final Fantasy IX. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Even the time-traveling antagonist from the first game made a comeback, as a Darth Vader-esque Garland was unmasked as the architect of the world's demise. His dreamlike realm was called Pandemonium, which was the Emperor's end zone in Final Fantasy II. Crystals also returned, and their themes were fused with the series' first mention of Gaia as the name of the planet.
Remember how I said that pretty much every Final Fantasy game references an older Final Fantasy game? Yeah. 10, I think, is like one of the only games, besides the summons, that doesn't do that as much.
9 primarily dealt with its lead characters battling with issues of identity. Garnet had the weight of a kingdom on her inexperienced shoulders, and Vivi came to terms with his own creation and inevitable death. Even Kuja wrestles with intense feelings of powerlessness. In addition to conceptual reference, there are also many specific nods to its predecessors. Hilda bears a resemblance to the Final Fantasy II queen. Dagger dons a white mage's robe, the dwarves shout out a somewhat familiar greeting, the battle line went back to 4, and you could attempt to buy a number of classic trinkets at the Treno auction house, such as Yuna's mirror.
I'm really curious to see what he has to say about 10.
The ability system in 9 was considerably streamlined in comparison to the complexities of 8, and reflected the systems Ito had previously implemented. Much like with Espers, characters in 9 learned their abilities by equipping some sort of item that accrued ability points per battle. Once the skills were learned, the item could be swapped out and the character would still be able to use the ability. Any equipment slot now had the capacity to teach these talents, and they became usable by the character the moment the item was assigned. Items taught different characters varied abilities. Much like Final Fantasy IV, each hero in 9 was clearly intended for a particular job. Their personal traits reflected these roles. Some were shared by multiple characters, and some were unique. In addition, not all the abilities could be active at once, allowing the player to be more or less effective by assembling the proper combination of attributes for each upcoming task.
I think that 9 was one of the first games where, apart from the limit break, there was actually more of a defined role for the characters. Aside from 4. Like, I think 4 would have been the last game to do that. Actually, no, 6 did it as well. So I was gonna say, like, 5, 3, 8, 7, all of those kind of, like, with 5 and 3, you could just change the jobs that your characters had. But, like, with 7 and 8, your characters, apart from their limit breaks, they could do whatever. Like, Renoa was just as handy of a melee fighter as Squall was, if I'm not mistaken. It was just their limit breaks that made them kind of have more bias towards one school or the other of magic or combat. Might be wrong, I don't know.
The limit break concept from 7 made a comeback when party members entered trance mode by reaching the end of their damage bar. Zidane was the only warrior who could choose from a list of attacks while tranced, as the others received a brief boost, strengthening their attack power or allowing them to act more than once.
I never noticed
Unlike
that.
limit breaks, these bonuses couldn't be saved and carried over to another encounter. Summons were dubbed Eidolons in 9, and their callers originated from a lost village, similar to Rydia's hometown in 4.
This game sucks. This game sucks. Terrible. Tetramaster who? Like, look at how big the board is. And they would put, like, these blocker things on it so you couldn't place cards in them. And the cards had, like, 8 direction. Yucky.
Replicating 8's grid-based card diversion, 9 let you challenge multiple characters to a bout of Tetramaster. Unlike 8, the game within a game became a necessary objective that pit you against the sport's champion, Sailor Aaron. After you became the new Tetramaster, Aaron was revealed as the pilot of your first airship.
I also never noticed that. That's funny.
9 also introduced the Final Fantasy audience to a strange internet support system called Play Online. Originally conceived to interact with Final Fantasy X, Play Online developed into an online add-on for Brady Games' strategy guide. This proved to be a poorly thought-out idea. Many fans that purchased it felt cheated because of the lack of printed information. Today, Play Online serves as the communication hub for Square's internet services, including Final Fantasy XI and Tetramaster.
Final Fantasy XI for me is like one of those games where I love playing it, but it is just nothing but a time sink, and it's an incredibly difficult game to play. It really kind of is. It's also like, I don't know. It's an old school MMO kind of. It's like old school WoW, classic WoW. Like there's just no guides for anything. You have to rely on the information you're told. You gotta write stuff down. You gotta be smart. It's hard, but it's so good, and the setting's so fun. It's just be one of those games where if you could play enough of it to get to the point where you play with other people, extremely rewarding. There's definitely communities for it. It's still a very thriving game.
Although 9 received critical acclaim, it was faced with mixed feelings from fans. While elder players looked upon it with warm nostalgia, the younger set simply didn't get it. Nevertheless, Sakaguchi has stated several times that Final Fantasy IX is his personal favorite.
Blitzball!
Join us next week when the faces of Square's fantasies are finally given a voice.
You understand me?
And the only direct console sequel in the franchise makes its mark.
It should not exist, is all I'm gonna say.